Welcome back to Military's Fix Our Computers Problems, an example of the customer experience challenges agencies are working on, but it's only one type of problem agencies have to deal with, CX-wise. Marlin McFate, Public Sector Chief Technology Officer for Riverbed. Marlin, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. How does what Colt talked about a few minutes ago mesh with what you're seeing as you talk to customers across government about CX?
It's an interesting question. I'm going to answer that kind of in two different ways, right? What Colt was really talking about was the things that need to be done to improve UX and the way that his organization is going about that. But what I also see is an organization, or organizations, that really haven't started going down that road. They're still kind of stuck doing things more in the old way of doing things. You know, Riverbed's basically been working in some way, shape, or form in the performance realm or end user performance realm for, let's call it, 2 decades. And the creation of the Chief Experience Officer that we've seen happen in roughly about 4 out of 10 government agencies, and that's including both the military side and also the civilian side. Really only 4 and 10, and those are much needed positions, and they're kind of an acknowledgement that there has been a problem and that we've been going about it kind of in the wrong way. And so when I do find organizations that haven't started down that path, I find that they try to utilize data, not what Colt was talking about, which are much more finite and more exact, specific data on user experience, and not just basing things off of how many tickets have we had this month, or what are the customers or the end users complaining about. Actually using much more just better data sets to determine whether or not there's actually a problem and what that problem is. So I see that side. But then I also see, when we go to organizations that are utilizing the customer experience and they're putting the effort behind that, them utilizing the data sets that Colt was talking about.
Yeah,
and having a lot more success, by the way.
What are the organizations that are collecting the right data doing to collect it, and what are they doing with it once they have it?
Well, let's take a step back. The data that they have in the past, that more adjacent data, network data or flow data or packet data or application-specific data, tickets, all the kind of things, that's still important, but then combining that with something like an Alluvio Eternity, right, which is looking more at really what is the experience on that end person's computer. Colt had mentioned Outlook, for example. Well, how fast does it send mail? How fast is it receiving mail? How fast is it downloading transactions? How fast am I getting my address book? Those types of things. But actually measuring right down to milliseconds how long those processes take, as opposed to taking a look at something like network data and saying, well, I see the connection between the end user and, say, the email server, and the response time is X, and now trying to ascertain, well, it looks like the end user should be having a good experience in this particular instance. What we would find is when looking at that data, but then actually working with the end user, you still find that they're saying, no, my experience is not actually that good. So ascertaining end user data, it just wasn't working. So Riverbed developed the technology to actually look at the end user's experience and how long every single minute action on that endpoint device actually takes.
You talked about the difference between organizations that have somebody that owns CX and UX versus the organizations in government that don't. For the organizations that do have somebody, that 4 in 10 that you talked about, what are the pain points that those organizations still tell you they need help with?
Good question. It's far less, to be quite honest with you. This is really more of a path or a journey, right? So we're not going to solve all end user experience issues, overnight, right? And not only that, it's not that, as the future, when we bring in new applications or put out new endpoint devices or expand the user base to a larger number of end users, we're not going to find that we continually run into end user problems. So this is more of a journey than, there's really not a destination here. But for those organizations that are utilizing a chief experience officer, some of the things the data showed that was quite interesting was, one, they're using different data sets. They're having more success in actually finding out the what the root cause of the end user problem is. And then another one was, we see that they have to take a level 1 ticket when somebody calls in, they have a complaint, elevating that to a higher level tech, that happens far less. And the reason why that's important is the earlier in that chain that you can solve the end user's problem is, one, you're eliminating a lot of time to, basically mean time to resolution, but you're also not necessarily tying up those more expensive resources. You've shifted left and you're able to solve things at level 1, level 2, and not everything has to make it to a 3 or a 4. And now those employees are left to be able to do the more important things that we want to do, like the new design, modernization projects. That before, they were kind of being pulled back to solve problems that probably should have been solved at a lower level. And the tools allow them to do that because it's just better insight, better data.
Marlin, thanks very much for joining me. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you so much.